Hi, my name is Tori Gumto, and I'm participating in Challenge 2014. So our first assignment was basically to select a calculus problem and then create a video tutorial that showed step-by-step instructions on how to solve it. So the problem I selected was h of u equals tangent cubed of u squared minus 1. Given this function, find the derivative. So what is a derivative? In simple terms, a derivative is a slope. So basically, if you think of the graph of a function and you pick a certain x value on that graph and just go up to where the graph is and find the exact slope at that point, that's a derivative. So in order to solve this problem, you need to be able to get the derivative of this whole function, which is kind of tricky. So let's start super simple. So let's pretend that the function is f of x and it equals x squared. To take the derivative of this, you first do f prime of x and you set it equal to, okay, so in order to take the derivative, you take the power and you bring it out in front, and then you subtract the exponent on the variable by 1. So x squared becomes 2x to the first, or more simply, 2x. So there you have it. See, the problem with the problem I have is that there's more than one function inside of it. As you can see, the outer function is tangent of the square root of u squared minus 1. All of that cubed is one function, but inside of that you have the tangent of the square root of u squared minus 1, and you also have the square root of u squared minus 1, and you have u squared. So that's a lot of functions. So you can't do it this way. You can't do it this easy way. You have to employ the chain rule. What the chain rule basically does is you start working, here let me write down, chain rule. So I like to work from the outside in and start with the biggest, most broad function and then slowly work my way in. So let's start with the tangent of the square root of u squared minus 1, all of that cubed. So now, if we just isolate that function, we can just do it like we did this one. So we take the power and you bring it out in front, so 3 of, and then you subtract 1 from the power of the original. So this is tangent squared, and then the square root of u squared minus 1. So there you have it. That's your first term. The chain rule is you take each chunk and you multiply them together. So in order to get the next part of the derivative, you need to multiply it by the derivative of the next part of the function, which is tangent of the square root of u squared minus 1. So let me write that. I'll just write at the bottom. So you have the next part of the function is tangent of the square root of u squared minus 1. The reason you get rid of the 3, the cubed up here, is because you've already looked at that part of the function, so you can just totally disregard it. And so then you take the derivative of this, you need to know that the derivative of tangent is secant squared x. That's just a rule of thumb. It's a trigonometric derivative. Trigonometric derivative. So basically, this part's really simple. You just say secant squared of the square root of u squared minus 1. Okay, so next part of the function, we have the square root of u squared minus 1. And an easier way to think of this, to make it more cohesive with the rest of what we were doing, is u squared minus 1 to the 1/2 power. So this way, you can just say 1/2, because you're bringing this power in front, then times u squared minus 1, and then you subtract 1 from 1/2 to get negative 1/2. Okay, so now we plug that back in. So we multiply this by 1/2 u squared minus 1 to the negative 1/2. Now the last part, which is going to be your favorite because it's the easiest, you're taking the derivative of u squared. And just like x squared, it just becomes 2u to the first, or just 2u. So now you just multiply 2u, and you're practically done. You just now have to simplify and make it nice. So now what you do is you're going to say, I'm just going to put it into a fractional form so it looks nice. So we have 3 tangent squared square root of u squared minus 1 times secant squared the square root of u squared minus 1. Then we have put this all over 2 u squared minus 1, the square root of that. Oh gosh, that's not very clear. So I'm going to make that clearer. So 2 the square root times the square root of u squared minus 1. And the reason you do that is because of the negative 1/2. So that puts it underneath the dividing. Then you multiply the top by 2u. Then you can cancel the 2's on the top and the bottom because they're equal. And so the final simplification is 3u, because 3 is here and u's over here. Then tangent squared of the square root of u squared minus 1, and secant squared times secant squared of u squared minus 1 over the square root of u squared minus 1. Hope that made sense.